It's a Mailbag Monday. We've got your questions about Astros outfielder Justin Dirden, Orioles infielder Jordan Westburg, and where did the Vanderbilt pitching pipeline go? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and this is your episode. All questions in every Mailbag Monday we do come from listeners of the show. If you have a question for a future Mailbag Monday, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball, show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, LockedOnMLBProspects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in the Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. Community full of baseball fans, probably the best way to interact with all of us, all of the everydayers who listen to the show. First question comes from that Discord. Team Hess in there had a question about Justin Dirden, the outfielder for the Astros. Said he hasn't really heard a lot about him after spring, and how's everything going? And this is kind of emblematic of those guys that were undrafted in 2020, which Justin Dirden, kind of like Matt Mervis, is one of those guys. So last year, goes to Double-A Corpus Christi and absolutely rakes. Justin Dirden's 92 games, 324, 411, 616, 20 home runs, 57 extra base hits, 41 walks to 94 strikeouts in 92 games, so just over once per game, and 7 and 9 on stolen bases. And gets a late season call-up to Triple-A Sugarland. It doesn't go amazing, 242, 305, 398, because he's having to adjust to the approaches. We'll get to that in a second. This year, 35 games back in Triple-A Sugarland, 266, 340, 489. Not a ton of improvement on the batting average, 25 points. On base, 35 points, a little better. Slugging, almost 100 points better than when he was in Sugarland last year. He's got 6 home runs, 16 total extra base hits, including 3 triples. And for a guy that has pretty decent speed, he doesn't steal a ton of bags. He only attempted 9 last year in, 120 games. But it really does impact when it comes to stretching a single into a double into a triple, scoring from first on a base hit in the gap, things like that. And part of the issue that he had to learn was he has above average power, but his approach is a little bit flawed. And when you're in college, especially when you're facing a lower level of competition, he started off at Eastern Carolina, transferred to Southeastern Missouri State. You have the ability to hit more mistake pitches than you get in professional baseball. And so when he got into Triple-A Sugarland last year, he had to deal with pitches that were close to the zone, near the zone, expanding the zone, messing with his approach to try to go out and get a ball. Now, he's very good at making quality contact when he gets on a ball, and he's really good about getting it up in the air. So, line drive rate, fly ball rate, that's all pretty good. But as he faced better pitchers, they got better and better at not letting him have a barrel. So he's getting a little bit better with that. Still slightly aggressive, but it works. The power, I think the raw power is plus. It's probably going to play down a little bit to above average in the bigs simply because of some of the flaws in the approach. But, your power tool is only as good as your hit tool. The everydayers have heard that a million times. But I really like what Justin Dirden can do. Speed's above average. Again, you see it on the base paths, not so much on the stolen bases. The arm is above average. He could play center field if you needed, but he feels like he's a tailor-made left or right fielder. Obviously, you've got guys like Michael Brantley who aren't going to be around that much longer. You've got guys like Jordan Alvarez who you don't want to play in the outfield. So you've got play time. You've got a guy in Triple-A who's hitting pretty well. Give him some time to get used to these more MLB quality approaches you see in Triple-A versus the development approaches you see in Double-A from those pitchers. And I think he'll be able to help your ball club in Houston. Another question, and this comes again from our Discord. This is from Brian. Asked about Blake Sabol of the San Francisco Giants. 2019 7th rounder out of Southern California. was a Rule 5 pick by Cincinnati from the Pirates organization and then was traded to the Giants. So obviously, Rule 5 means he has to be up all year. He's getting play time. He's played in 31 games so far at the MLB level this year. 277, 333, 468, 5 home runs, 8 extra base hits, 6 walks to 39 strikeouts, and 2 for 2 on stolen bases. And the big thing about Blake Sabol is he didn't get a ton of time in AAA in Indianapolis. He was with AA Altoona for most of the year last year in the Pirate system. He had 98 games in AA, 25 in AAA. So he, in essence, went from AA to the bigs with a new organization as a catcher, which is hard to do. And he's playing other places on the field. We'll get to that in a second, too. So last year in those 123 games, you can kind of see the foundation of who he is, right? 284 batting average. He's at 277 this year, so remarkably close. 363 on base last year. 333 this year. You see where that's close. 497 slug last year. 468 this year. So everything is just a little tick down, but in the same ballpark of where he was in the minors last year. 19 home runs, 51 extra base hits, 55 walks to 129 strikeouts, 10 of 12 on stolen bases. So the walks haven't been there at the big league level like they were at the minor league level. The strikeout rate's still hovering just over 1 a game. And the thing about Blake Sabol is he's more so than a lot of the guys we talk about on the show, he's just a ball player. He's one of those guys where his power is probably average to above average. His hit tool is probably right around average. He's slightly below average on speed. The arm's not, fantastic. The defense behind the plate isn't necessarily great. Like he struggles on blocking laterally, things like that. He is a good framer. Pitchers like throwing to him. And he utility outside of just catching. He plays some left field as well. And so he's divided his time between behind the plate as a backup and left field. I want to say he's got 21 games at catcher. He's got 10 games in the outfield, and he DH'd one time for the Giants this year. He's the kind of guy, you need guys like this to have a major league roster. Is Blake Sabol going to win you a World Series? No. Does he have the ability, because he does have a little bit of pop? He can get it. He can get a ball to all fields. Can he come in and be an impact guy off the bench, be a backup catcher? Perfectly valuable. He's a utility guy. You love that kind of thing. The struggles that he has being a full-time catcher, I think the swing has some holes in it. He can get got by velocity up in the zone. He struggles a little bit with spin off the plate, things like that. But I'm very happy that he is up and he is playing every day. Not every day. He's getting regular play time in the bigs because, again, Blake Sabol is the kind of guy you want in your organization because he's going to make the floor higher for your team, especially a good team analytically like the Giants that understands platooning and is very good about putting guys in a position to succeed. So happy for Blake Sabol that he's with the Giants. I think he'll be up. I expect them to keep him. I expect him to be up all year, keep him, and probably not go back down next year when they can send him back down like the Tigers did with the Kilbadoo. Probably keep him up. In just a minute, I've got a question about Jordan Westburg of the Baltimore Orioles, as well as what Cincinnati does at shortstop, and one of the many Dodgers outfielders. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part has to fit just right. So next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Add your ride to their My Garage feature and look for the green check mark to know that your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit only able to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Okay, Chris sent us an email. Reminder, if you have an email for the show, it's literally the name of the show, lockedinmlbprospects@gmail.com. Chris sent us an email. What will it take for Jordan Westburg of the Baltimore Orioles to get promoted? And That's a really good question. So 2020 first rounder supplemental out of Mississippi State. And part of this is there's just so many middle infield and corner infield options for the Baltimore Orioles. And he mentioned in the thing, Gunnar Henderson scuffling a little bit, playing third. Jorge Mateo, he doesn't mention this, but Jorge Mateo has slowed down at shortstop from the fantastic performance he was putting on early in the year. I know that because I got him in redraft, and I'm looking for a new shortstop. Shout out to our friends over at Locked On Fantasy Baseball for helping me out with that. Go listen to Matt and Dom. They're great. But last year, Jordan Westburg gets 138 games between AA and AAA, and most of that is AA, 91 games. Bats 265, 355, 496, 27 home runs, 69 extra base hits, 70 walks to 147 strikeouts, and 12 of 15 on stolen bases. This year, he goes back to AAA Norfolk, and he is absolutely raking. 316, 388, 618, 12 home runs, 21 extra base hits, 17 walks to 41 strikeouts, 4 for 4 on stolen bases. So you can see the strikeout rate. He's striking out more than once a game. He did it last year. He's doing it this year. Higher level of competition, strikeout rate stayed about the same. Defensively, he's doing a lot of different stuff in AAA. 13 games at third base, 16 games at short, 4 games at second, 3 games in right, and a game in left. Like literally, they're trying to find every single way that they can get him into a game. Somebody who none of his tools are plus, but everything's average or above average. Like he's not bad at anything. So speed above average. He could play short. I don't think he'd be great at short, but he could play short. He has a good enough arm to play third. He has a quick enough hands to play second. Obviously, he has the aptitude to kick out to an outfield corner and play that at least an average level. Offensively, he still struggles a little bit. You can see it by the strikeouts. He's really kind of struggling with sliders down and away. Still a thing that he hasn't really been able to fix. And if you watch as you go back through his time in the minors, he'll struggle and then it'll click and he'll start to take off. He'll struggle, it'll click, and he'll take off. And so the end of the year last year when he's in Norfolk, it's not bad, but it's still lower than his career norms. And then boom, it clicks and he takes off, given the stats he's doing this year. I don't really know when he's going to get a chance to be up and stay up. I don't feel like they're going to move on from Gunnar Henderson anytime soon. Obviously, they may demote him for a little bit, let him work on some stuff and come back. But they're really invested in Gunnar Henderson. They really think he can do well. And obviously, they're thinking about the Adley Rutschman Rookie of the Year stuff. And can we get a draft pick or something like that, for Gunnar doing well. So they're kind of invested there. I think you may see some action at the trade deadline. They may move somebody like a Jorge Mateo out of the system. And if they do that, Westburg, because the bat's hitting so well, he's a candidate to come up and get some time. Same thing if they move an outfielder. There's a lot of outfielders. We talked about Colton Cowser just the other day, but obviously he could play some corner outfield as well. So you're probably having to wait for we hope it doesn't happen, but an injury or some sort of transaction, unless he just keeps destroying AAA Norfolk. Because 618, a 1,000 OPS in AAA is going to get you called up eventually. So keep doing what you're doing, Jordan Westburg. Keep murdering baseballs. 21 extra base hits in 37 games. Let's go. Keep doing that. Focus maybe on getting to walk a little bit more so you get that magic 3, 4, in this case 6 slash line. And hopefully we'll see you in Baltimore sooner rather than later. Question from Zach via email. What happened to Jose Barrero? He asks. And has he been replaced by Matt McLain? And I think the issue with Jose Barrero, we knew Jose Barrero's offense wasn't great. I don't think we knew, and we knew his power wasn't going to be that amazing. We knew his power ceiling wasn't very high. It was his defense was really good. And when you look at him this year, he's gotten 34, 35 games in Cincinnati. 233, 304, 330. He's not walking as much as you thought he would. He's drawn 11 walks in those 34 games. He's hit 1 home run, 8 extra base hits. You thought he'd have a little bit more doubles production off of this. So the slugging's pretty low. The OPS is below 650. And then Matt McLain, who rocking a 789 slugging right now, 267 batting average. It feels like the offensive ceiling is higher for McLain. And I'm even a person who's not convinced that Matt McLain's the final form of this infield. There is runway here, and I think Christian on YouTube asked us about this. Like, what's stopping the Reds from just calling up a bunch of the kids and having McLain at short, Elly De La Cruz at third, Christian Encarnacion Strand at first, Jonathan India at second, Spencer Steer as your DH and utility guy. And honestly, I don't really know what's keeping them from doing that. It's something where as these guys get in there and kind of take over in AAA and hit really well, obviously Matt McLain made a prospect team of the week, got called up just about immediately afterwards. I think between when we selected him and when the show came out is when he got called up. But it's something where they're trying to slowly work these guys in. And I'll make the same point here that I made in tomorrow's show with Paul from Locked On Rockies. So the everydayers, stay tuned for that. It's hard sometimes to figure out when a guy is ready for the bigs and needs that test of the bigs versus when he needs to continue developing in the minors. And it typically comes down to is the next developmental milestone, is the approach sound? Do they need to work on dealing with the quality of MLB pitching or the proper sequencing that MLB pitchers get? Or are they still having issues with their own approach and the way that they do things? So Matt McLain made it up before Elly De La Cruz. De La Cruz is one of the guys that we talked about, batted over 300 with a strikeout rate over 30%. Not incredibly sustainable. We've seen him do a lot of work, especially in the month of May, to raise the walk rate and lower the strikeout rate. So it feels like he's coming pretty soon. Christian Encarnacion Strand probably would have already been up if not for the fact he had the back injury to open the year. So I think by the end of the year, you'll see all of these guys up there. You won't have, Spencer Steer's playing first base right now, and we know he's better utilized as a utility guy who can cover first and second and third, and probably a little bit of shortstop if you asked him to. So you're going to get there. They're just taking their time and doing them one at a time versus all at once. So you'll see that. You may also see a transaction where maybe they move a guy like a Kevin Newman who can play defense but is another light hitter like Jose Barrero. Maybe a Jose Barrero too. Do they move some guys as we get closer to the trade deadline to shortstop needy teams? Get an asset because the Reds have done a great job of getting assets in trades. You may see something like that first, and then when that happens, them bringing up the kids. We'll see what happens there. Question about Jose Ramos of the Los Angeles Dodgers. This came from Barry on Twitter. And he asked about, does Jose Ramos have a path to playing time in LA? Because they have a ton of outfielders in this system. And then obviously, at the big league level, Mookie Betts is one of your 3 guys, and he's not moving. And it looks like James Outman's one of your 3 guys, and he's not leaving anytime soon. And I think for Jose Ramos, so 2018 IFA, I think the big thing for him is I don't think he's going to be a starter anyway. Something where the defense is good, his arm is fantastic, but his offensive approach is so lacking. And I know he's hitting well right now, but and the power's real. 125 games last year in the low minor, split between A ball and high A. He hit 249, 339, 479 with 25 home runs and 53 extra base hits. He also struck out almost 170 times. And the thing with Jose Ramos is the raw power itself, the bat speed, the swing, all of that's really good. He just can't recognize a breaking ball out of the hand. And as he gets into the higher levels of the minors, he's doing okay right now in Tulsa, 37 games, 271, 371, 512, 9 home runs, 13 extra base hits. But he's also got 38 strikeouts in 37 games because he struggles to recognize spin. He's getting better at it, but I just have questions whether or not he's going to get to the point where you can even project him as an average hit tool. To me, the ceiling for Jose Ramos is probably because the arm is so big and he could be an above average corner defender and probably average in center. I think you're looking at a ceiling of a fourth outfield type, a guy that can come in late in a game, replace a slugger in a corner, give you some good defense, maybe get an outfield assist or two a season at the plate with the big arm, because those throws are great. I mean, it is incredibly strong. It is incredibly accurate. It's a weapon. If he wanted to pitch, he probably would be a decent pitcher. But it's just offensively, the quality of the hit tool is so low that I don't know if he'll have a ceiling of an MLB regular, especially a team that likes to contend like the Dodgers. In just a minute, we've got questions about Noah Cameron of the Royals, Jeferson Quero of the Brewers, and Vanderbilt's pitching pipeline and what happened to it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at So Rare. It's a new sponsor of ours, revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace. It transforms fans into owners. You have officially licensed digital cards with players from all 30 MLB teams, and you own the fantasy experience. You can collect, buy, sell, and compete with your cards. So you go to sorare.com/lockedon. It's SORARE.com/lockedon. You draft your team of free player cards, and then you set your 7-player lineup for every game week. There's 2 game weeks per calendar week. You have to pick 7 players. You have a starting pitcher, a relief pitcher, a corner infielder, and middle infielder, an outfielder, an extra hitter, and then a flex, anybody but Shohei Ohtani. And you get points, positive or negative, based on how they do in that game week. The higher you come in at the end of the game week on the leaderboard, the better of the prizes that you get. You always get another card to add to your collection, and once a day, you can swap one card for a random assortment of other cards. You get like 5 choices, you pick which one. But also, the better you do, you get rare cards, you get game tickets, you get autographed merchandise, VIP experiences, tons of fun stuff like that. I've been playing So Rare most of the season now. My team's gotten pretty good, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and I haven't spent a penny. So head to sorare.com/lockedon, SORARE.com, to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. So, over the weekend, Noah Cameron of the Kansas City Royals got promoted. Nelson in our Discord asked me about Noah Cameron and kind of some of my thoughts. 2021 7th rounder out of Central Arkansas was a good get by the Royals. They got him under slot because he had Tommy John and lost his junior year of college. And he's got 19 games between rookie ball, A ball, and high A last year. And his performance year over year is remarkably consistent in a good way. So, last year, 3.56 ERA and 65 2/3 innings. 99 strikeouts, so 13.6 per 9, to 16 walks, 2.2 per 9, gave up 6 home runs. This year, Noah Cameron's entirely in high A. So that is the Quad City River Bandits. 3.60 ERA compared to last year's 3.56. See the consistency. 35 innings pitched with 58 strikeouts, so 14.9 per 9. Last year was 13.6. To 9 walks, 2.3 per 9. Last year was 2.2. Remarkably consistent, got bumped up to AA over the weekend. Very excited about that. Has not played there yet, has no stats. And the story here is fastball, changeup, curveball, has a cutter as well. Should throw that more, I think. But fastball sits in the low 90s. He can touch 95 with it. Changeup is fantastic. A lot of places have it as a 60. I think it's a little bit better. Throws it in the high 70s, low 80s. I'd love to see it maybe 82 or so. Really good deception. Blends in perfectly with the fastball. So does the curveball, which is above average to plus. It's an 11-5 pitch. Sits in the high 70s. Also has the cutter, so when everything's working, and it usually is because his control is very, very good. You can see by the low walk rate. He's got fastball, obviously stays up in the zone. Cutter, he's a lefty, so the cutter breaks to the right. You have the changeup runs back to the left, and the curveball drops down. Everything comes out of the exact same slot for Noah Cameron. His ceiling is going to be, what does the velocity do, and how does he handle better hitters in AA who can make contact with the curveball as the bottom drops out, or can recognize it better once it leaves that tunnel. That's going to be the deciding factor on his ceiling, but I'm really excited about Noah Cameron. When you start seeing a bunch of these re-rates come through of the top 30s, you're going to see him jump from the mid-20s as far as prospect rankings for the Royals to probably the mid-teens. Really like Noah Cameron. Question from Brian in our Discord. He also asked the Blake Sabol question earlier. Question from Brian in our Discord. Has the Vandy pitching pipeline dried up completely? And I do not think it has. I just think you have more options now for the academically strong school who are really good at pitchers. And I will point you to the boys over at Wake Forest. If you go and you look at some of the top pitching prospects in this year's draft, there are a surprising number from Wake Forest. Rhett Lauder is obviously the one we're thinking about, the first-round guy, but you've got lefty Sean Sullivan, Teddy McGraw is a top 100 guy, Camden Minacci is probably a top 125, Seth Keener's a top 200 guy. The Wake Forest pitching lab, them being so public with we have this biomechanical lab that we can use to make you better, has meant a lot of those players who academically can qualify at the tougher school and want to go somewhere private, both Vandy and Wake are private schools, they have multiple options now. And Wake has shown just as much of an ability to get you into MLB as Vandy historically has. So if you are a top pitching prospect who is going to college instead of going pro, Wake Forest is a pretty attractive option to go to. The Carolinas, closer to the beach than Tennessee is. The climate's a little bit different, but it's a lot of the same stuff as far as a good coaching staff that knows what they're doing. The competition level in the conference, not as good as the SEC, but still pretty good. The ACC will have the second most hosting spots when the Field of 64 comes out. It's a pretty appealing option. So I think there's just more dilution for the top prospects. And then you kind of have to acknowledge as well the role of NIL and transferring and things like that. And it's just a lot. And plus, a lot of the pitching prospects committed to Vandy don't always make it to Vandy because they get drafted. And so when we talk about like the Vandy pitchers, like Kumar Rocker, who's having TJ, or Jack Leiter, things like that, we also forget about the guys who were committed there and got drafted and given big overslot bonuses and went ahead and signed. Last second add in there, right as we were hitting record, Brian let us know that Jeferson Quero was added to the top 100 list on MLB Pipeline. And fan of Jeferson Quero, catcher for the Brewers. He was an IFA in, I think, 2019. I did not have time to pull up notes on this. This is all just off of vibes because, again, as we were hitting record. But something where he was already a good catcher. And then now that he's in the Brewers with their catching devil magic, he's even better. The arm is a plus arm. Very, very good defensively. And then offensively, he had a line drive approach last year. It was age 19 year, split it between low A and high A. Very much it was, like trying to spray line drives from foul pole to foul pole. Ended up being more gap to gap than foul pole to foul pole. And the power started to come in a little more this year. So, got it pulled up here. So he hit 10 home runs in 95 games, again, age 19, between low A and high A. This year, in 25 games in Double A Biloxi, he already has 6 home runs, only has 9 extra base hits. So some of those doubles in the gaps turned into home runs. Slash line is 283, 323, 511. Some of that comes back to pitch recognition. The on base is lower because he's doing a better job at identifying this is a pitch that I can drive versus this is a pitch that I can't make quality contact on, but he's still not doing enough to lay off and not swing at some of these pitches. He's only drawn 6 walks in 25 games. That's why the on-base isn't that much higher from the batting average. Fantastic week this week. Reminder, if you have questions for the show, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in the Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.